things are moving at an accelerated pace down in Latin America. Earlier I had reported that Colombia had pulled its ambassadors from Venezuela. Well, now Venezuela has in turn expelled two U.S. CIA two U.S. envoys in response to the new sanctions that were announced earlier. Now, in this video, I am going to attempt to focus on two specific people that I think will illustrate the problem, and if the U.S. would attempt to, again, topple Mr. Maduro, how it could spell disaster for the United States. In this article here, it speaks of this particular person, Todd Robinson. And this is him here. He and Mr. Brian Annoying Orange Naranjo were accused of fomenting and facilitating the overthrow of Mr. Maduro. Given that 3 separate U.S. high-level administration officials have called for this activity, I don't know how anyone could deny this. Mr. Robinson actually has quite a colorful history when you look into it. This is official. This is ve.usembassy.gov, our relationship, our ambassador. Not making this stuff up. Now, I will not torture you with this 1-minute video where he speaks Spanish about, well, as a 7th grader does, who has studied Spanish for maybe a half of the semester. It's horrible to listen to. I won't put you through it. But the history of the man will definitely set off some alarm bells for you. Deputy Assistant Secretary, Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs. 2009-2011 served as Deputy Chief of Mission, U.S. Embassy, Guatemala. Consul General and Principal Officer at U.S. Consulate, Barcelona, Spain. Not horrible. Chief of the Political and Economic Section in the U.S. Embassy in Tirana, Albania. Now, from there, he went to the Dominican Republic, Bolivia, the Holy See in Italy, El Salvador, home of MS-13, and then, of course, our favorite peace-loving country, Colombia. Now, let's go back to Tirana, Albania for just a minute here. Tirana, Albania is literally the poster child for globalism. And you can look this up on your own. I'll just read a small portion just from the wiki of Albania. Albania has a high Human Development Index and is ranked 13th in the Happy Planet Index, 38th in the Global Gender Index, 52nd in the Social Progress Index, 37th for life expectancy. The country is a member of the, are you ready for this? The UN, the World Bank, UNESCO, NATO, WTO, COE, OSCE, and OIC, and it is also an official candidate for membership in the European Union. In addition, it is one of the founding members of the Energy Community, including the Organization of the Black Sea Economic Cooperation and Union for the Mediterranean. I don't know how many more. Point made. Anyway, so that's where this guy was the. Let me make sure I don't misquote here. He was the chief of the political and economic section in the U.S. Embassy there in Tirana. And then, of course, did some time with oh, gosh, I wonder what he learned there. So, yeah, so this is the guy they just tossed out of Venezuela. And in case anybody out there is still under any impression that who the good guys and the bad guys are in this right now, I just want to, how does the U.S. sanctions affect Venezuelans? Well, let's go down here and let's look. Consequences and effects. Here you go. You ready for this? Now, this is not made up stuff. This is all can be sourced. The provider of financial services, Euroclear, retained 1.65 billion Venezuelan dollars that would have been used to purchase food and medicine. The BSN Medical Laboratory in Colombia canceled the treatment for malaria in Venezuela. Wells Fargo withheld and canceled payments of $7.5 million for the sale of energy to Brazil. energy that Venezuela had already provided to Brazil, by the way. 2,200 tons of pork were retained for 2 weeks at the border with Venezuela. Several tons rotted during retention. In July 2016, the bank accounts of the Central Bank of Venezuela and the State Bank were closed by Citibank. Closed by Citibank. This is what was done to Venezuela. This is what they don't ever report. This is what they never tell you in the news. The real effects of these sanctions. Can you tell me how destroying 2,200 tons of food serves anybody at all? How is 2,200 tons of food going to somehow foment the drug trade or foment corruption? It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, not to get too far off track here, I said we were going to talk about two different people. The other person, I don't think anyone has taken into consideration. This is Mr. Tariq El-Aissami. Anybody who's been with my channel for the last year knows who this guy is. But for my newest subscribers and my newest visitors to the channel, I'm going to give you the crash course on the vice president, more accurately described as the co-president of Venezuela, the one you don't ever hear of. You see, in Latin America, South America, there is a very large Middle Eastern population. Mr. Temer of Brazil, the president of Brazil, is actually of Middle Eastern descent himself. I think, I don't want to say he's Syrian, I think he might be Jordanian. One of the two, but he's definitely not native and he's not Spanish. This guy, however, is a very specific kind of Syrian. He's a Druze, and the Druze are known for being a very inscrutable version of Middle Eastern folks. They're not classical Muslims, but they're supported by them, and they live amongst them. This guy has connections going through the Middle East that go back all the way to his uncle, I believe, worked directly for Saddam Hussein in the Ba'athist Party. Now, his connections are detailed here in this Pan Am Post article. And let me give you just a warning. If this guy ends up being the president, if they overthrow Maduro and this guy ends up being the president in some kind of a deal, it's over for the U.S. Just get your bunkers ready now and make sure you have lots of fuel to run, because it will be over, and it will be over quick for us, and I'll explain why after I explain these connections. All right. Intelligence sources revealed one of the pillars of the criminal structure is Faris El-Aissami, brother of the vice president. According to the investigation, it is he who is responsible for executing many of the operations inside Venezuela. Another key character is Hussam El-Aissami, cousin of Tariq. Works as a counselor of the Venezuelan embassy in Jordan, fundamental in delivery of visa and passports to people linked to the Islamic terrorist group Hezbollah. Pardon me. Another cousin, Fadi El-Aissami, also participates in the illicit chain of the vice president, who also deals with the transfer of funds to Syria and Lebanon. He also has companies that have contracts with the Venezuelan state. Finally, there's Haifa El-Aissami, sister of the vice president, ambassador of Venezuela to the Netherlands, and that's who controls the ABC Islands, Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao, and representative of the regime before the International Criminal Court. She is the one who basically keeps the ICC tamped down on his behalf. Now, this is how well connected this guy is. The family network acquires products that travel from China through Panama and that are taken to the port of Puerto Cabello in Venezuela. And this is where customs just brings it in. This is what I've been warning of. I've never said that the Venezuelan government completely is all clean and righteous and nice and wonderful. But this guy right here, the bus driver, he's not the one you got to worry about. That guy is. He's the one waiting in the wings to create a nightmare. Because here's what'll happen if you topple Maduro and this guy takes over. What's going to happen is something called taquilla is going to enter into the calculus. If anybody doesn't know what that is, it's this. Taqiyya basically is the idea that Islamic radical fundamentalists can pretend to not be that way and pretend to be your friend and your pal and your ally right up into the point that they're not, or it doesn't serve Islam anymore. Now, here's OPEC, okay? Organization of Petroleum. I want you to look at these member countries, and I want you to tell me how many of these countries that you think are run by Muslims or have Sharia law. UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Nigeria, Libya, Kuwait, Iraq, Iran, Gabon, Equatorial Guinea. Ecuador might be the only one that's not. Angola, Algeria. This is OPEC. And if a Syrian takes control of Venezuela, I promise you that OPEC will ally 100% across the board with Venezuela. And if they do that, it is over. They will turn the screws on the United States like no other. And they will force things, and they will insist on things, and we will not have a choice. You see this line right here between Venezuela and Colombia? You can kiss it goodbye if Mr. Aissami takes power. This line is gone. You might as well draw this line here right over to here, because all this will all be controlled by them virtually overnight. No questions asked. That's why I have warned and I have begged for the last year, get your loved ones out of Panama and get them out of Costa Rica. Now, while I've been watching this happen, I've been trying to watch other things just to kind of keep my mind occupied, and something popped up on Netflix, there was Hulu or something like that, that reminded me of this entire situation, and I'm going to leave the last minute. And this is literally how Tariq al-Aissami will speak if he takes power.
And I answer you, not the least. We should embrace the opportunity. The Dominion recognizes us for what we are, the true leaders of the Alpha Quadrant. And now that we are joined together, equal partners in all endeavors, the only people with anything to fear will be our enemies. My oldest son's birthday is in 5 days. To him, and to Cardassians everywhere, I make the following pledge. By the time his birthday dawns, there will not be a single Klingon alive inside Cardassian territory, or a single Maquis colony left within our borders. Cardassia will be made whole. All that we have lost will be ours again, and anyone who stands in our way will be destroyed. This I vow with my life's blood. For my son, for all our sons.
Somebody tell me this is a bad dream.
It might be. It very well might be. Like, share, subscribe.